Welcome everybody to Mindful Mondays with Laura Cross, and thank you for joining us on this Mindful Monday. I want to start by thanking our sponsors, Jeff Borschowa, White Sands Premier Travel, Vibe, and BAM Metrics, because without these sponsored appearances, Mindful Mondays would not be possible. But if you are an entrepreneur and you are tired of the typical linear blueprint, maybe you are looking for something and you're hungry for something more aligned, more spacious, and more human, then you are in the right spot. So, because you're going to love my guest today. He is just what you have been waiting for. So it's rough. I'm sorry. I have been on vacation and now I'm coming back. So here we go. But Jeff is a guide for visionary founders navigating the fog between external success and internal resonance. And he's got a background that spans entrepreneurship, system design, education, and artificial intelligence. But he has spent decades helping creative business leaders find clarity, not in just what they do, but in how they lead. He's an author of over 100 books and a speaker who blends strategy with soul. And he's the creator of the Pharos Effect, which I can't even wait to find more about because I love the name of that. But it's a framework for sustainable, spiral-shaped business growth. So Jeff doesn't just believe in one size fits all solutions. There is no such thing, right? So he crafts pathways for the entrepreneurs who are hungry for something more. So please help me welcome my guest, Jeff Borschowa.
Awesome. Well, Laura, I want to thank you and welcome back from vacation. I want to hear about your trip, but we'll save that for off air. I'm excited about the Pharos Effect because for years I've looked for that one size fits all. And for years I beat myself up because I didn't fit that narrow little box or I couldn't replicate whatever was promised. And then it was always, well, you didn't do it right or it was your fault. So I'm happy to share.
Yeah, no, and I love that. I'd love to know how the name Pharaoh's Effect came about it, and how this all came about. How did you get started with this?
Well, it's fascinating because in about 2015, 2016, we incorporated our company, and Pharos is the Greek word for lighthouse. Now, it also is the name that was used for the original lighthouse at Alexandria. And our tagline was always and has always been insight, clarity, and growth. Now, fast forward to this year when I realized that we weren't really elaborating and sharing what insight, clarity, growth meant. It meant something to us, and we just assumed other people knew what it meant. So I actually sat down and I came up with the Pharos Effect. And the idea was, and this was kind of radical, and it wouldn't have been possible without the years of research, the years of study. But the idea was really simple when I realized that insight, clarity, and growth means something different for everybody. So we created the Pharos Effect, and the idea is really, really simple yet radical, and it's easy to do, easy to not do. But the reality is, most entrepreneurs I know are really busy. Somebody told them this is the way you have to do it. Our family, we're Star Wars weirdos, so we talk about the Mandalorian, and they always say this is the way, and it's like, but what if that way doesn't suit me? What if it doesn't fit me? And what I realized was that a lot of entrepreneurs are busy because they don't have a path that works for them. So, for example, and this is just fascinating to me, if you talk to somebody who's an expert at YouTube, they will tell you with 100% certainty the only way to grow a business is to create YouTube videos. Now, if I go talk to somebody who is on TikTok, they're going to tell me with equal certainty, you got to dance your way to success or you got to do those 20-second videos, whatever it is. And then if you talk to somebody who's an expert in Instagram, guess what? And so what I found was a lot of coaching, they focused on the how to. And I spent a lot of my time learning the how to, But then when I realized that what was missing for me was the mindset. And I've been a fan of Tony Robbins since I can remember. And what I used to listen to was his saying that success leaves clues. And I just assumed that everybody had mindset figured out and I was just the one playing catch up. Um, but what I realized was that if I didn't have the mindset mastered, the skills didn't matter. So Pharos became more of an analogy for me. And to be honest, it was me trying to create a system where I realized that it had to be a non system to be effective. And that was the aha moment. And I'll share that. Um, what I recognized was that we all need insight. We need to know what matters in our business. We need the clarity of here's what we should be doing. Um, but if we don't have the insight and the clarity, we're going to be really busy being busy trying to grow, when a lot of entrepreneurs haven't stopped and asked themselves, what does growth mean to them? And I can tell you, I work with all kinds of people, whether they're in the business space or they're in sort of the mindset space, and some people actually physically reject the word scale because it feels contrary to what they believe and their views on life. If you went back to the early days, let's pretend we were talking to Christianity, scale probably wouldn't have been a good fit for the movement. Now,
Right.
fast forward, a lot of mindful entrepreneurs, they care about their impact, they care about their legacy. And that was the aha moment that almost every one size fits all focuses on what's your revenue targets? Well, for the right people, revenue targets are actually offensive. And that's, for me, I realized, and that's where, I really evolved the Pharos effect, was I wanted to work with people who cared, people who wanted to have impact. And the aha moment for me was if we nurtured the impact side, the revenue side takes care of itself. Whereas if we focus just on revenue, they get bored and they move on.
Yeah, and I 100% agree, and I love that because you have to have the mindset and business. It's not really separate to me. It is all together. I kind of wish you knew it was someone you knew you were someone that I knew like a long time ago because I've been through all the different business things where everybody keeps trying to fit you into their mold and oh you have to have this, you have to have that, and you can get lost down so many rabbit holes trying to do what you think you're supposed to be doing, but you don't get off the ground because to me, I guess when my aha moment was that I was losing who I was in the process. And like you said, when you put the people first, the revenue comes later.
Yeah.
Because I know some people that are phenomenal, but when all you ever hear out of them is revenue, 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 it really, like you said, it's offensive. It offends people. It turns people off. We're
Yeah.
all business owners. We want to, make money, but you want to help people. You lose the whole thing of what you're trying to do when you keep putting the money up first.
Yeah. And I found in particular, I work with a lot of people in the wellness space, and usually they had some challenge, some issue in their lives, and they found a cure or a treatment or something, and then they become raving fans and they just want to spread the message. Um, that passion gets diluted the minute you start talking about, what's your annual revenue, what's your monthly target, even the words in the language of sales is offensive to them because instead of people and humans, you're talking about targets and a lot of the traditional marketing and sales language is very violent. You're the target, you're the prospect. It's not, I'm seeing you as a human. And so what we found, and I will credit AI with this, and this is what I love about AI, it allowed me to question everything. I put in, and I spent hours on this. This was, hundreds, if not 1,000 hours. What do I do? Why does it matter to me? Why don't I like this? What do I like about that? And really, truly, the Pharos effect was me figuring out why I felt different or inadequate when I go, I can go to conferences, and I'd go to ones where you're sitting in the room with business coaches, and they all want to pull out their KPIs, and it just, none of it fit. And I tried to make it fit, and I went to a lot of things, I took a lot of courses, read a lot of books, and I was like, this just doesn't feel like a perfect fit. And what I came to the conclusion, I labeled that fog bound, because I was losing my way and I didn't really know where I was going. And again, once you unlock the Pharos lighthouse, everything just became nautical. So we call people who are a bit lost, we call them fog bound. The people who are somewhat lost but know where they're going, we call them drifting. And the ones who are really in trouble, we call them storm tossed. And I think we've all been there, where it's like, will this end?
Right.
And I think the greatest gift I could give to people was, and I'm recognizing this, is understanding that we're not alone. There's something unique about the entrepreneur. We all think we're unique. We all think we're alone, and we're like, oh, nobody would understand this. So I actually created my podcast to bring visionary people together, so that we could talk about it, and so that we could understand that we're not alone.
Right. And that would be the Big Thinker Universe, right? On YouTube.
Yes.
Yes, which I had the privilege of being on. Thank you very much. But yeah, no, and see, and I love people that do that and create all these different things. And that's like my whole reason behind this, is for people to know that they're not alone. Because there's a lot of times, everybody has it within them to be successful, to be that entrepreneur. It's just figuring out what works for you.
Absolutely. And so the podcast itself, so my YouTube channel is Big Thinker Universe. The podcast is called The Lighthouse Sessions. And contrary to what people believe, the lighthouse is not me, it's my guests. They are the bright light. And what I realized was that people want to skip to growth, growth, growth. That is, we live in this hustle culture. You spend 5 minutes on social media and somebody will tell you, you need to do this more, you need to do that. Um, my approach, and again, I created the Pharos Effect to free people, not to bind them. But the approach is to stop and ask yourself, is this activity serving me? Does it meet what I want? And a lot of people, it is surprising how we hustle, hustle, hustle. And then we get to what we think is the finish line, and we're like, ooh, I was winning the wrong race.
Wow. Yeah. And so, was there a process? I mean, how do you help other people to get that aha moment?
So there is a deep process. And I'm a fan of, so at the heart of it, I love systems and processes, and I love frameworks. So what I did, I spent probably about a year analyzing the frameworks that I tried to use and figuring out why they didn't fit. And every single time I realized it was because it wasn't aligned with my goals. So, what I did, and the insight, clarity, growth is the start of the process. And basically, the idea is we don't proceed. And this really challenges people, because they want to jump to, okay, what's my to do list? The first thing we do is we ask ourselves, and we have a very detailed process about this. I don't want to make light of it, but if you don't know who you want to serve, everything else you do is misaligned or misguided. So the very first thing we do is we get really, really clear on who we want to serve. Now, in my case, I like a group of people, I love a group of people called visionary entrepreneurs. And so for me, it made sense. Everything I built, I wanted to spend my time with visionary entrepreneurs. And the definition for me is they have multiple projects. You are one of those people, obviously, Laura, where, defining us and trying to put us in a little box is almost impossible, because people looking from the outside go, that doesn't make sense. Whereas when we look at it, we see all the balls we're juggling, and we're like, it makes perfect sense.
Right.
We're professional plate spinners. We like to try different things. We resist being put in a narrow box. And the other thing I realized is I am neurodiverse. So to sit with somebody who is not, and to try and explain my multicolored, multi world to them, is exhausting for both of us. So I just decided, and I'm lucky to be in that space. I said, I just want to hang out with people who are strange and unusual and interesting to me. And I'm not going to waste time with people that I find boring or that find me confusing. So that was kind of the heart of it. But in that insight, once you figure out who you serve, and this is business 101, but I can't tell you how many people can't give me a good answer of who you serve. Once you figure out who you serve, then I obsess, and I have methodologies for this and frameworks on what are their pain and how can we solve more than just the immediate obvious. If somebody comes to you because they have headaches, well, the obvious thing is they want the headaches to go away. I look at it from the perspective of, well, what could we do to prevent the headaches? Because I'd rather prevent a headache than make it go away.
Right.
But then it's like, okay, once the headaches go away, the good news is now they're pain free. What are they going to do differently? Are they going to go out and do things? And basically, I look at myself as a lifestyle concierge, where my job is to help my audience. Once they solve the problem they've paid me for, I can send them somewhere else to get the next thing solved. And to me, that's just fun. But the magic is once you get to know somebody, and for the record, I don't solve literal headaches, I solve business headaches. But once you solve it, then it's like, okay, what can we do next? And that's where we start to get into, creating new products. I'm one of those weird people that thinks that most marketing is a waste of time and energy, because the path is, how do I convince you that you need my stuff? But the reality is nobody buys stuff because they want more stuff. They buy stuff because they want the feelings, the emotions that come with that stuff. So what we do is we look at, what does somebody actually want? What are they looking to buy? I do ghostwriting, I do business coaching. Nobody comes to me and says, Jeff, I'd like to buy ghostwriting, or, ooh, I need some business coaching. Yeah, maybe you think you need it, but usually it's to solve a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So once we get really clear on the insight stage, then we can pick the activities we need to do so that we can move forward. And the number one problem I see over and over and over again is that people don't know who they serve. Therefore, they don't say with clarity what problem they solve. So then they jump into activities like, okay, we need to do YouTube videos, we need to do this, we need to do that. The amazing thing is once you get clear on who you serve and what keeps them awake at night, you can actually eliminate a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I love that. It's like you find the root cause of why their business isn't going. I'm help people find the root cause of their pain and discomfort. So we're both about the root causes. So yeah, I love that. We're going to have to take a quick break from a word from our sponsors, but I know we have a lot more to dig into, especially when you start talking about, the integration of AI and emotion, because there's so many people that have a block about that. So we will continue our conversation in just a minute.
PTSD, anxiety, pain, insomnia, and many other ailments. Introducing Vibe, the world's only pocket PEMF device. You place in your pocket while cooking, cleaning, relaxing, watching TV, sitting at your computer, reading, or walking. Self-contained standalone device. No drugs. No other phone or Bluetooth connections required. No monthly subscription fees. No apps to download. No Bozone. The future of medicine is in the frequencies. Come join the revolution.
Hi, I'm Bobby Aldridge with BAM Metrics. There are so many programs out there that measure your swing speed, sets, reps, your BMI, your body fat, but the one thing they're not measuring that's so essential is mobility. Mobility is the key. If you're measuring your mobility, your performance will get better and you will reduce your pain. I created BAM Metrics to make it easy for people to repeat the exercises so they could do it properly at home on their own. It's simple, it's easy to do, and from a senior to a pro athlete.
So, Jeff, you mentioned AI, and even you had used it to help you. When you're working with people in your Pharos Effect, do you blend AI with that at all, or what's your approach to that, or your philosophy on that? There's a lot of people that are just horrified of AI, thinks it's going to take over the world, and anything can be used for bad, right? But there's a lot of good that can come out of it as well.
Absolutely. And for what it's worth, when I first started looking at AI, my reaction, I was approaching it from it's going to become Skynet and end humanity. And early on, it's funny because I have these strange conversations. It assured me that humanity will end humanity if humanity is going to end, because it's not about the tool, it's about the people who wield it. And the analogy I give is nothing is inherently good or bad other than how we choose to use it. So if we use it to topple governments and regimes and to attack people, obviously AI is going to become considered evil. Whereas if we use it for good and to live our best purpose, it's just a tool. So to me, and this is something I would say for everybody listening, and I have no money riding on this whatsoever. Everybody says, "Oh, I'm scared AI is going to take my job." The reality is, it's people who know how to use AI are going to take your job and your business, for that matter. Um, and the thing I would say in favor of AI, I don't want Laura to get hate mail over this. Um, AI is not meant to replace humans, it's meant to augment them. And one thing I've learned is that if you're smart, it will amplify your intelligence. If you're doing something you're not good at, it will amplify it, and it comes out. That there is that old saying, garbage in, garbage out. It's now garbage in, garbage out to the power of 1,000. Because and this is where I think a lot of people make the mistake. They'll log into their favorite AI. Mine is ChatGPT, or they'll log into multiple AIs and try to get different results. But what they'll do is they'll log in and they're very lazy. They'll say, AI, help me write a LinkedIn post. No context, no rules, no training. And that is the epitome of garbage. No offense to anybody who does that, but seriously, please don't ask me to read it, because I can tell you it's garbage, and I'll tell you why. Now, the thing is, and this is where it gets fantastic, if you are an expert at whatever it is you're an expert in, you with pain relief, me with business challenges, we know what questions to ask, we know what we believe, and when we're reviewing something and we're creating a process, we can look at it and go, that's not very good outcome. So what I look at it as, and this is where I see this, the old model of paying people per hour, let's just happily ball that up, throw it out, because it doesn't make sense anymore.
Right.
And so what I see, and this is, my vision of the future, if I have a team of 10 employees and I can train each one of them how to use AI in their role so that they get better results, more consistent results, faster results, why wouldn't I pay them the same amount or more than the old model where I paid them by the hour? Now, a
Right.
lot of people hear that and they go, oh, I can squeeze my employees. No, no, no. Don't do that, because you squeeze them, they leave.
Right.
And I think that's right now we're going through a bit of a radical shift, because all of the benefit of adopting AI is falling into the hands of the employers and not into the hands of the employees. So, if you think about it, and this is just fascinating to me, this is the greatest opportunity to ever, this is more powerful than fire, than farming, than, you know, international travel. Like, all of these things pale in comparison to what's possible when we unleash people's minds and we allow human intuition, human imagination. If your employee isn't spending 40 hours a week creating LinkedIn posts, what else can they do? What else can they imagine? What else can they create? So I say to people, if you're not using AI, you need to be really comfortable with the fact that your competitors are. And
Yeah.
doom and gloom, people want to say, oh, this industry's dying because of it. I don't believe any industry will die because of it. I just think we'll get better at it.
I look at it as, like you said, another revolution, because I used to write computer programs back in the day, and I won't bother to mention a lot of the languages because they don't exist. But I will tell you that when I used to write them, I used to have people in class that would freak out, break out in tears because it crashed. They lost every. I'm like, it's a computer. It is only as good as the information that you put in it, and that's basically where the garbage in, garbage out comes from.
Yeah.
And like you said, AI is really no different. It's just something new that people are adjusting to. And of course, if they've been on the receiving end of scams or whatever, they're going to have a bad outlook about it. But it does a lot of good. And if you are a solopreneur, it can save you a lot of time. But
Yes.
again, feed it what you need. I happen to have a platform from Groove that has a multiple different AIs all into one. I can make it sound like a certain person or myself. I can tell it to be persuasive or to be this, not to use this word. I mean, but people that just slam stuff in there, throw it out, and then send it to you, and it's like, even I've been approached with people like that, and it's like, oh, well, we're doing this, this, and that for you, and you can tell AI wrote it because, first of all, you don't even have the sense to have my guest name spelled right, but it's what AI kicked out, and I'm like, yeah, that does not drive me to want to do business with you. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. A lot of people. So I'm going to talk about delegation versus abdication. And I'm going to be honest, a lot of people don't know the difference in real life. If you're going to give something to an employee, what does delegation actually look like versus you figure it out? I call that abdication. And unfortunately, if you do that in real life, you're going to get crappy results. If you do that in AI, you're going to get crappy results to the power of 1,000,
Right.
and painfully crappy results.
Yes,
So,
painfully.
so if I may, and this is a rant I have all the time, I am a system guy first. Now, for the record, I have ADHD, I have autism. My brain hates systems from an imposed upon me point of view. But what I found was with AI, I could take standard systems and adapt them to suit my brain. And this is how I work. This is what causes procrastination, all that kind of stuff. But the amazing thing, and this is so two things I would say for your audience. Number one is study how AI communicates, because that's how I learned. I got addicted early on when I said, I can't help but notice that whenever I ask you to do something, you always paraphrase and ask, is this what you're hoping for? Teach me how you communicate. And it was fascinating because as a human being, we all learn how to speak, we all learn the language. Um, Nobody actually sits down and teaches you how to communicate. We
Right.
all think we've learned how to communicate because we fumble through. But it taught me some methodologies for here's a good way to get people to ask for help, a good way for people to offer to help, or here's how you should ask people for help. So that was my first thing, is I got really clear in my communication. And I doubt most people will spend the time on this, but practicing with AI has helped me be a better communicator with real humans. So oddly, I became more human by using AI. The second thing is I can figure things out. The problem is I'll waste hours figuring something out. So what I now do, and this is something back to delegation versus abdication, I'll ask AI to give me a first draft of a process, and then I'll try to do it myself. And there I'm tweaking rather than blindly following. But once I create a process for something, then I can hand it off to an actual human being and say, okay, this is in your wheelhouse. This is your skill set. Here's the AI model I built for you, which, again, it's just a really powerful process.
Mhm.
Once you create that process and you codify it into an AI model, the human that knows their job, they'll get to do the work faster. You and I use show notes for all of my podcast guests. AI has a process that drafts it. I'm still the human that reads it and says, "Yeah, I don't know if that's exactly what Laura said. Let's tweak it a little." Um, but that's the difference between abdication and delegation. Is in abdication, you don't know what success looks like. You don't know what the process is, and you don't know enough to judge whether the output was good or bad. Whereas with delegation, you're still in the loop saying, I don't quite like that. Could we have a little more of this, a little less of that?
Yeah. I remember when I first started using it, it's like, okay, do not use the word embark and delve, because I do not embark and delve. It's like, do not write this. But it's kind of, like you said, you can kind of talk to it, you can train it, and you can learn from it as well.
Yeah.
So I love that. I never even thought about going to that extent of doing process and stuff. So that gives me something else to venture and play with.
Well, it's fascinating. So if you have, again, most solopreneurs, we do our thing and we just get on with it. And it's like, okay, it's Monday. We hit start and we run as fast as we can. Hopefully, we get to Friday with some energy left for our lives and our families. What I'm finding, and this has been a huge time saver. What used to take me a day now takes me minutes. And so, of course, being an entrepreneur, it's like, ooh, I can fill that time with something else. Now I'm being more intentional in filling that time with family time or leisure time. But the cool part, and this is another thing I do, is I'd like to hire somebody to do this for me. I have no idea what to say, what to do, how to ask them. Help me create a request that I can give to somebody. And I'll give you a really practical example. I have a fascinating condition called aphantasia. And it's rare, but in it, when I close my eyes, I see words in my head. Most people see pictures. Most people can remember. If you're asked to remember a vacation, you're going to either think in terms of your five senses. You're going to remember smells, tastes, sights, sounds, whatever.
Mhm.
I see words. So for me, as an entrepreneur, I find working with visual graphic design people physically painful because I don't have the vocabulary to tell them what I'm seeing in my head. And I'm very frustrating to work with because I'm using words and they always say, well, close your eyes and paint me a picture. Well, my brain's not wired for that. So I actually created a custom AI model that takes my words and translates it into visual. And then I can share it with my graphic designer and he'll look at it and go, oh, you want this? Absolutely. So,
I love that. And I was gonna say, I'm almost kind of jealous because, yeah, I can picture them and everybody wants me to put it into words. And I'm like, and the words escape me where you have the, you have the words. I can see the pictures, but words will escape me, but yet you have the words. So yeah,
yeah.
that's incredible that you have that.
Well, and for what it's worth, I tried to be visual because, everybody's visual. And, even Tony Robbins, he'll tell you if you want to achieve success, one of his things he does is you have to close your eyes and imagine a lemon and, cutting into the lemon. And literally what I see is the word lemon, and I see the word knife, and I see the knife cutting the lemon in words. And so I realized that I'm just going to focus on written because everything else is frustrating for me.
Yeah. But that's incredible. It's an incredible talent, I would say, to have. And that's like I said, you and I, we don't fit in boxes, right? But we have figured out what our strengths are, and you figure out how to make it work with you, which is why I love when you work with people. There is no one size, because none of us are built that way. We're individuals for a reason.
Yep.
So in your path, when you were working with people and stuff, what about the creative burnout? I mean, are there practical steps that founders can take to avoid burnout while maintaining their drive and creativity?
Yes. And yes. And spoiler alert, it has to do everything with AI. So I have frameworks, a lot of frameworks. And the number one framework that I use is the Pareto principle. And I heard about it in university, and I was like, okay, I get it academically, but it was, study for the test, pass, and move on. But what I realized when I stopped is that 80% of your results come from 20% of your effort. Now, the problem is we all think we need 100% of our results, so we don't bother looking for that leverage point of the 20%. Now, the really cool thing, and this gets incredibly nerdy, I apologize for anyone who hates math, but if you go one layer in further on Pareto, if we look at the 20% that gives us 80% of our results, we can go one layer in, and 4% of our effort gives us 64% of our results. And then I started to pay attention, and this is John Maxwell talks about the 1% solution. That is Pareto, the third layer in. And basically what it says is that 1% of our effort, more or less, will yield 50% of our result. So what I did, because I'm a weirdo, I built a custom AI model that has what I have built in. It's called the 1%, the 4%, and the 20% solution. As an entrepreneur, I build the 1% solution, because that's where my vision comes to life. That's where I can go, oh my God, this is it. And I'm excited. Literally, it's the plan, and it's the whiteboard. That's where me as a visionary entrepreneur, I get really excited, and I can take a bow and go, it's done. Now, anybody listening will go, but is it done? Because really all I've done is come up with the plan and the strategy. But believe it or not, that 1% is 50% of the result, because I know exactly what success looks like. Now, again, most entrepreneurs are trying to do 100% because they don't know what's what. So I slow down and I identify the 1%. That becomes my minimum viable product, my beta release, whatever I call it. But basically, that 1% is something I can take to my existing clients and say, what do you think? And if they say, oh my God, we love this, then I can look at, is it worth it for me to do the next 3%? So we get to 4% to create a 64% solution that we go public with. And with that, then I can look at, who do I need to bring onto the team? And almost always I start with an AI model, and then I find a human to use the model to take it from the 4%, 64% to the 20%, 80%. And here's the fascinating thing is, in the 1%, you have ultra high risk, but ultra high reward. In the 4%, you have high risk, high reward. In the 20%, you still have high reward, but lower risk. Now, inversely, when you get to the 100% solution, I got to do it all, you get to ultra high risk again, but low reward. Because there's no reward in polishing the thing. It's the money is in innovating, disrupting, and that's what I see in the 1% solution, the 4%. 20% you're sort of becoming market ready, and that's your launch to the public. But basically, most entrepreneurs never make it to launch because they have a long list of things they must do before they feel ready to launch. So I launch with an idea, and if somebody's willing to pay for it, then I build it. If they're not willing to pay for it, guess what? Go back to the drawing board, next idea.
Nice. I was going to say, build it and they will come, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I like the fact that you mentioned that you have to slow down to go forward faster, because everybody just thinks the more they do, the faster they go, the more they're going to get done. But more people hit burnout that I see that way, and they get frustrated, or they lose themselves. And I know one thing you help people with is like rediscovering their inner compass, because we all get lost with that. So, what practices do you recommend for entrepreneurs to reconnect with their inner compass during challenging times?
This is actually pretty controversial, but I will share. I recommend meditation and breath work. And a lot of people say, well, what's that got to do with business? And the answer is everything. And I'm going to tie it back to your show. The problem with burnout is we start to believe the lie that I just need to work harder, I need to work faster, I need to do one more thing, until we fall over and our bodies just say, you know what? You weren't paying attention before. I'm going to put you in the hospital and you're going to have some time to think about what went wrong. So, one of the things I do, and I have mentors in my world, if somebody wants to work with me, they go and spend some time and they learn how to meditate. They learn breath work. And it sounds counterintuitive because people, oh, I'm busy, I don't have time. And the answer is, if anybody's actually burnt out, which I have, you think you don't have time to take care of yourself. I can assure you, you don't have time to recover from burnout, because there's no such thing as, take this pill and you're fixed. Your body is going to tell you how much damage you did, and you're going to take some time to recover. And our spirits take longer to recover than our physical. So that feeling of burnout can last a long time. I think my record, and I'm not proud of this, I've burnt out multiple times. The worst was it took me about a year to get back to the point where I actually felt even remotely close to normal. So
Wow.
it's cheaper to avoid burnout, I promise. But the magic, Laura, is when you stop, and this is so powerful. I can't even begin to really describe it adequately. But when you stop and you breathe, and you take a minute, your intuition will tell you this doesn't feel right, or your guide in your head, whatever that voice is, your gut, you decide what you call it, will go from a faint whisper to screaming saying, don't do that.
Yeah.
And I see this in a lot of places. They're like, Jeff, I don't have time, I don't have time. And then they're like, oh my God, I can't believe, they're running so fast they didn't stop and ask if they're running the right race.
Yeah. And I learned that about that a couple of years ago, as far as the deep belly breaths and just
Yeah.
being in quiet. And it's amazing. And like you say, it may sound simple, but when you're focusing on your breath, especially if you're doing a deep belly breath and you're practicing on pushing your belly out instead of the typical way we breathe, your
Yeah.
brain has to focus on that. So it really just dumps, everything else. And I've done meditations with certain people even over the thing, and it's funny because when they say feel this, I literally will feel it in my body, where when I'm go go go, you don't feel it. I've done a number of those jobs where I feel fine, I go go go, and as soon as I sit down, relax, oh, here comes the pain is now kicked in, and I'm like, okay, I'm in pain now,
Yeah.
because I slowed down. Once I slowed down long enough, my body just started screaming. But yeah.
Well, and the problem with a lot of entrepreneurs, when they do manage to take a vacation, they put the same freneticness into their vacation. So they come back exhausted from their so called recreation. And it's like, and again, okay, I'm going to really get some flack. Sorry, you're going to get hate mail.
You're
Um,
good.
everybody talks about Disney being the happiest place on the planet. I'm an introvert. It is literally hell for me. So what I realized when we go there, I'm like this all day. Just it's like, oh my God, would these people back off? Just shut up, be quiet. It annoys me. If I spend a day at Disney, I need to spend 2 days at the beach to come down from my day at Disney.
Right.
And it took us a while to figure that out because the kids, my wife's one of those, well, we traveled here, we're going to get our money's worth. And I'm like, I hate you all. I need to leave. And we just realized when we stepped away from Disney, we compromised. We'd go one day, take a day off at the beach, go one day, take a day off at the beach. And then before we flew back, we always made sure the last day was at the beach.
Mhm.
And we'd come back happier and have better conversations. But I think that's one of the challenges. And, I think you will get this. People aren't mindful of how things make them feel. And I'm going to be honest, I bought into the Disney propaganda that, I'm supposed to be happy here. And I went down the what's wrong with me? Why do I hate it? And then I was like, wait a minute, this is not my idea of a vacation. Give me a book and a nice, comfortable chair on the beach and let my kids play. I am happy. They're happy. We come back recharged and relaxed. So, but I would say, and if people are out there going, well, should I learn to meditate? Should I learn breath work? Just do what Laura said. And I'm a big fan of 10 deep belly breaths. You generally will forget what you were stressed about, but your brain has more oxygen. So you'll come back and go, oh, I should do this. So again, I'm all about mindset first. But the aha moment for me is everybody, once COVID hit, we all started scheduling 60-minute meetings back to back. I now schedule 50-minute meetings, 50. I'm trying to get down to 25, but 50. And I take 10 minutes to make sure I walk a little bit. I go get a drink, and I always take 10 deep breaths before I start my next call. And guess what? The person I'm about to meet is far more interesting. They're far more interested, and I have more energy for them.
Yeah. I have my calendar booked so where I have a 30-minute buffer between each one, because if I run over with one, that's okay. But I'm still going to allow time, like you said, to go do that reset. And
Yep.
otherwise you're just going in this, and then you're trying to catch up and you think you'll remember. And then you've had so many meetings. It's like, okay, what did what did we discuss? What was I supposed to email that
Yeah.
person?
Oh my God,
Um,
what was my to-do list? And yeah,
yeah. No, and I've done Disneyland, Disney World. I love them. I will tell you, I am an ambivert, so I love the fun and the stuff. But there's times where sometimes the crowds are just I'm done with it, and I need enough. So like you, it's quiet time. It just kind of depends on what mode I'm in, and there's nothing wrong with that. But
yeah,
I have known people that do that too. They just like their workday, they schedule out their. I'm like, that is not a vacation, because oh my God, do they come unglued if something
yeah,
goes wrong? I'm
yeah.
like, you gotta learn to just flow with it. Really, it's so much better. Um, we only got a few minutes left, Jeff, and I know you and I could go on forever, but because I really do love your approach and what you do, and how you help people to do that. Um, the story, is it storytelling? You have storytelling involved with that? I mean, how do you blend storytelling in with people when they're doing stuff?
Absolutely. So one of the requirements when I work with somebody is we create a business parable. And the reason we do that is nobody cares about your reasons for me to buy your thing. But if we can identify why somebody would want to buy the thing and we can walk them through the story, then they'll come to the logical conclusion either it's a fit for them or it's not. But the aha moment for me is if I have to convince somebody, and I took classical sales training, so I can overcome objections. It's exhausting for me, it's exhausting for them. And there's a good chance tomorrow they're going to wake up with buyer's remorse and go, oh my God, I don't need this. I want to send it back or I want a refund. What I've found with good storytelling is they make their own decision completely independent of me or my clients. And if it's a fit, they'll tell you why it's a fit and they'll want to work with you. So that's kind of a requirement for me in my business. Once we've got that insight and the clarity, the growth is a byproduct. And again, a lot of people want to tell their story. I hate to break it to you, but your clients and your future clients don't care about your story except how it makes their story better. So if you can show them what that story should look like, and I've got a lot of business parables I've written. It is fascinating to me because people come and say, I was stuck here. You gave me the permission to explore this option. Thank you. And to me, I think that's the greatest gift as an entrepreneur, even, whether you're a solopreneur or an entrepreneur or whatever you want to call yourself, if you can give your potential clients and your clients value in your marketing and sales process, they're going to love you forever. They're going to refer you to other people. Again, nobody books a vacation because they desperately want something called a vacation. They want happy kids, happy spouse, yada, yada. They want to decompress. They want to wake up and smell the flowers of Hawaii in the morning, whatever it is. But the key is helping them understand what they're getting out of it. Again, nobody wants the pill that takes away the pain. They want whatever their life is after the pain is gone.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
so I encourage storytelling, and for what it's worth, I teach people how to tell their story all the time for free because number one, I want people to tell their stories. Number two, I don't want, if they can't afford a budget, they can't work with me on a paid basis, I still want them to walk away and at least take the time to tell their story.
Nice. So we have a couple minutes left. I have your website up. That's probably the best way for people to connect with you is on your website.
Honestly, the
Or-
best
Mhm.
is through LinkedIn.
Okay.
And I spend most of my hours on LinkedIn. I'm going to be honest, every now and then my website, I get bored with it. I tear it down and rebuild it. Just in case anybody questions whether I am actually an entrepreneur. I'll have the copy approved and ready Monday, and then Tuesday I'm like, I hate it. But the best place is on LinkedIn. There are some links on my website. The other thing they can do is just go into Amazon and Google one of my latest books, the one I'm really excited about. It's called The Lighthouse and the Founder. And basically, it's the story of a character named Alex Rivers who finds his rhythm in his business and he lets go of things and he learns to honor the things that serve him.
Nice. I will definitely have to check that out. I know you have a number of them. But Jeff, I want to thank you so much for joining us today and sharing all of your nuggets of wisdoms, because I know there's a lot of people out there, entrepreneurs, visionaries, founders that are just stuck, you know, and trying to fit those molds. So definitely wanted to have them be able to reach out to you, especially if they're feeling stuck. You're tired of the whole linear things. I so love your approach, and thank you so much for taking the time to share that with everybody today.
Well, thank you for having me, Laura. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. And I love sharing that, we can do more when we stop doing more.
I always say
Oddly
we
enough.
can do more together, and yeah, stop trying to do it all yourself, right?
Yeah.
Well, thank you everybody for joining us. Absolutely reach out to Jeff. He's easy to find. We'll have all the links will all be in the description of the show, so it'll be easy to get a hold of. But if you're that person that's feeling stuck, you can see Jeff is really easy to talk to. He's got a world of knowledge, so reach out, and we will catch you all next Monday. Have a wonderful week.